I welcome you to the show Awaken Nation with Brad Salas.
A huge shift is taking place on planet Earth. People seem to be waking up. Tired of the way things used to be, they are creating something brand new and changing the world we live in. My name is Brad Salas, and I get to sit down with the next generation of idea makers, the disruptors, and the game changers. Everyday people, just like you and me, from all over, who are doing amazing things to Awakened Nation.
Hey, everybody. I have Sigmar Berg on the show today. And if you don't know who this gentleman is, uh, buckle up, because if you're into meditation, healing, mental health issues, anxiety, we're going to be talking about love, light, and tuning into that frequency that helps you not only calm down a little bit, but awaken a little bit here on Earth. And we're going to talk to Sigmar today. He has an extraordinary story, and I am so jazzed to interview him today. Sigmar, welcome to the show, my friend.
Brad, thank you so much for having me. And it's always great to talk with like-minded people. And as you told me, you're on a decade-long meditation journey, so we have something to talk about.
Yes, and I do. I want to actually talk to you about when you started to spiritually awaken, when you started this practice, and when you started meditating. Because for me, I was in Catholic school and I would walk out to the backyard and look up at the stars and talk to God that way. That was
Yeah.
my way of doing it. And that started around 10 years of age, something like that. So let's go back in time with you a little bit and hear how you started with this extraordinary journey, my friend.
It's interesting because I think we have a very overlapping story. So I'm from Europe, and we had like classic Catholic school, not schools, but we had religion as a major, even like you
Yeah.
had your math, you had like whatever literature, and then you had every other day you had a lesson of religion basically. And I very soon recognized that God really sits in nature. And after all those years, like what you just said, 6, 7 years old, it was also my time when I recognized that whatever they tell you is nothing when you compare it to where God really lives and to what we should connect, and this is nature. And then obviously, you go on a different journey, but it was always nature that reminded me. And and this is why I think spiritual awakening happens right then, like it never
Yeah.
goes away. The seed is planted, you understand it, you feel the power, and it's nothing. And this is why I think in general, spiritual awakening has nothing to do with a book that you read or
Right.
listening to someone. It happens in your heart, and this is why spirituality is completely disconnected from intellect. So
Yeah.
sometimes, you stand on a beach somewhere in South America, you see a guy that sells coconuts for $5 a day, and he's extremely happy. And he goes in the ocean and he feels everything. And then you see people living in New York City having millions or billions and having no connection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And maybe
Hey,
and
hey, wait a minute. I used to live in New York. I'm teasing. uh,
yeah.
this is,
So
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, and this is like in the long circle of whatever happens later in my life when I really started meditation, and then I invented the Lovetuner, and I went on this frequency journey. But it all comes back to nature. And my book, the One Journey book, even starts with that I'm standing outside hugging a tree. So yeah, it's one big circle.
I've always found these journeys amazing. If anybody's ever read the book by Somerset Maugham, The Razor's Edge, this is the story of Larry, who wakes up slowly. Uh, he has an extraordinary experience where his commanding officer jumps in front of fire to save his life. And he says, I can't live my life like I used to, just worrying about money, just worrying about, the stock market and my rich friends. And he decides to live an extraordinarily different life. And I feel that that's what happens with spiritual people who awaken. You might be working in a certain field, and one day you say, I can't do this anymore. Did that happen to you at all?
No, I was never at this point of I never reached the point of a burnout or something.
Right.
Uh, the only thing what I recognized is when you see it once and you really have an awakening, there's no way back, you know?
Yeah.
So it was not like the circumstances of my life that made me change something. It was literally this curiosity. And then, you go into it and then you see it and you cannot make it unseen. And
Yeah.
this is why I think it's a blessing for people that have the chance. The earlier, the better in their life, because
Yeah.
even when they forget and they go in a career and do whatever, but it stays with you. And I think that's the most important thing, to see it once, hold it in your heart, and then it's there forever.
I agree. I joked earlier that I lived in New York City, but I spent 35 years in New York City. And I remember when I got there, I was in my 20s, and I was desperate for a group that was spiritually awake. And I just started seeking, looking for, a group of people who were like-minded, who didn't read the book. You know what I mean? They were more into the heart. And I found those people, but I find it extraordinary when someone like you talks about how you were raised a certain way. Where did you grow up, by the way? You had said
In,
grew up in Europe.
in Austria.
I got it. Okay. Although I was raised here, my father was Hungarian, and he was the first to be born here in the U.S. So I had more of a European upbringing compared to my other friends. My best friend he's German American, and so he and I connected because we had that sort of European upbringing. Um, but I was always a seeker as a kid, just like you are. Let's shift gears a little bit because you talk about frequency, and that's the whole kind of standard behind why we meditate. When did you start meditating and seeing that this was kind of a key to spiritual unfoldment?
I started meditating. This is now about like how many years? Nearly 20 years ago. And and I learned it in a classic way. So I learned it from a shaman. So I used Indian drums, and
Yeah.
then yeah, it just became my routine. I did it like really religiously in the morning. I did it in the evening. I followed basically everything I learned. And some days it was great, some days it was not that good. And and a couple of years into it, I got introduced to an old friend of mine who was basically experimenting with the 528 hertz for a long time already. And he sent me a friend of him who did breath work, and he sent me on a guided meditation, and he called it the Agua Journey. And we have been listening to 528 hertz, and it was like about an hour meditation. And it was a meditation that was one of the deepest and most profound meditations I ever had. And this was just for me to even get an introduction what 528 hertz means. And
Right.
and then this journey started, and we invented this product a couple of whatever 6 months later. We had our first prototype. We rolled it out, and basically I had no clue what I'm even touching.
Right.
I had no understanding that this is a very old knowledge, that it was a healing frequency for thousands of years. The Gregorian choirs have been chanting on this frequency. They healed entire communities. And yeah, so this is basically why my journey started with frequency and vibration.
That is amazing. So let's talk about 528 frequency because Nikola Tesla said this a long time ago. If you want to know what the future is or the future of science, look up frequencies. And so I've been fascinated by this because they claim that our music today is at a lower frequency than it should be. So humans get pulled in a certain direction. But when you have 528 as your frequency, let's dive into that. I'll let you guide us through this because I find this fascinating.
Yeah, so first of all, the 528 hertz is not like a man-made frequency. So it's a cosmic frequency that occurs in every living matter. It occurs in the humming of the bees. It's in the chlorophyll of our plants. This is why it's green. So because 528 hertz on the light spectrum is the color green.
Wow.
So when you listen to leaves, for example, with an amplifier, you hear the frequency. And so this gives us the understanding that it's a divine note. And then I studied a lot about it, like it's the whole circle of solfeggio frequencies. They're all healing frequencies. The 528 hertz is the most dominant one. And when you expose yourself to this frequency, it releases anxiety. It helps you heal, and it's basically it's such a pure frequency that it's like light. So darkness, when you turn on the light, there's no darkness. And it's the same
Right.
with this frequency. There can be no negativity. And this is why, love and light is something where you go like, well, love and light, you say it, oh, I love you. But it's really the power of the frequency. And this is why it's called the love frequency. And this is why they call it the DNA repair frequency, because we as a human resonate with this frequency. And
Wow.
there's so much knowledge out there. It can even restructure water. So there's the scientist Emoto who wrote this book, The Hidden Messages in Water, and he tests different styles of music onto waters and what happens. So and if you say like whatever swears to water, it changes the hexagonal shape of the water. And
Right.
the 528 hertz does the complete opposite. If you use it on polluted water, it restructures it to the original hexagonal shape. And when
Wow.
we, and this is just the device we are talking about. So it's actually a little single tone flute what is calibrated to 528 hertz. And when you use it, it makes a vibration that goes in your body, but also measurable like 8 feet out of your body. So you create like a frequency carpet around yourself. And when you do this, it aligns your water molecules in your body because it's the same thing it does under the microscope, what's Emoto proved. And this is happening in your entire structure. And this gives you this feeling of relaxation, and it just works instantly. So that's the
I
thing.
love this because if you've ever looked up the water experiments, ladies and gentlemen, they found that when they swore at a jar of water and they said negative things, and then they looked at it under a microscope, the water structure just was helter skelter. It was all over the place. But then when they had a jar of water and they said, I love you, I love you, I love you, and they let it sit for a while in that love and light, and they meditated around it. Basically, what happened is they looked at that water under a microscope, and it formed perfect hexagon patterns, and it was beautiful. It was like a color, like a beautiful blue hue. And so I recommend anybody who may be challenged by what we're talking about to go look up the water experiments and come to the realization that the human body is made up of 70% water. So this love frequency that Sigmar is talking about is when you activate it, it creates the vibrational field for your body to heal. Am I correct on that in
Yeah,
that assessment?
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it gives it the support and the sustainability. I right now, I got into a conversation earlier today with somebody who just, they obviously it's the first time they're hearing about it. And when you hear something for the first time, a lot of people what they do is they tell you you're crazy, all right, yeah, yeah, okay, buddy. But I look around us at this push for e-vehicles, and people don't realize that you're sitting on a battery, which is giving off a lot of
Oh,
electromagnetic radiation. I got into a Tesla a couple of times in my life, and I can't handle the EMRs, the electromagnetic radiation that's coming off the dashboard. It's off the charts. So if you don't think invisible energies can affect you, here I'm just explaining the negative side of all this, um, and how this works. Uh, I want to ask you this question: what miracles have you seen from people who've used this device that you've created?
I mean, we have stories that I don't even want to talk about here because people will literally think that I'm completely nuts, and it will, it will hurt my reputation. But we heard real miracles, like really crazy stuff. But what people told me, and this was the interesting thing, is when we started with Lovetuner, I obviously I went to some of my friends. Some of them smiled at me and went like, "Oh my God, what is this guy smoking now?" And so it's it's something, where especially when we started nearly 10 years ago, nobody talked about frequency and vibration and breath work. It was like something, it was a very small minor group of people. Now it's all over. But
Yeah.
we went into school. So like, because all the people that have been open to it, they loved it. The other ones like smiled about it. But kids give you an instant feedback. And we went
Yeah.
into the schools, and when you have like 8 or 9-year-old ones in elementary school sitting around 20, 30, and you walk in there and you have 50 minutes with them, and it's loud and nobody focuses, and you go like, okay, I brought you this love tune. Like, let's tune all together. And within no time, we had the full attention. And three things happen in every classroom. We did it. And I did it personally for a long time. Then we have so-called Lovetuner team riders that went into different schools. We learned it to teach us how to do it, to have a mindful moment in the morning. And what happened is bullying was eliminated within one semester. There was no bullying between these kids. The focus, overall focus and grades went up. And the third thing what teachers told us is there was a community feeling within this classroom. So kids who have not been friendly with each other or just whatever, but they started seeing each other not on a superficial level, but they experienced the connection in this heart field, because the love tuner creates heart coherence. So these kids did not connect intellectually, they connected on a heart level. And
Right.
we got, after the first year, we got some booklets from those schools, and all the kids wrote in there, because of the love tuner, I know what to do when I'm upset. Because of the love tuner, I know what to do when I'm alone. And it was crazy. Like in these kids, and this made me happy, because kids don't fake it. We did not
Yeah.
pay. They have no layers. They're very straightforward. They use it and they go, don't like it, or they like it. And
Yeah.
this is basically why I saw, okay, that really works. And then so on and so on. After this, a lot of different stories came to us where it really changed people's life. And it makes it easy. I mean, it's nobody should change their spiritual hygiene or their meditation, what they're doing. But especially for beginners, the Love Tuner is an easy way to learn how to meditate, and it's an easy way to open this spiritual world.
Yeah. I keep envisioning these monks in the Far East, and even old Catholic monks doing Gregorian chants. And these monks would meditate for 4 hours a day, and they would generate so much heat that they could dry their laundry. The locals would dry their laundry on them, just to show how hot they would get in these Himalayan mountain areas. And so I'm envisioning what the Love Tuner does. It gets you to that 528 hertz frequency faster than a 4 hour meditation does.
Yeah.
And they found these monks, if they didn't meditate for 4 hours a day, they would get sick, actually, if their meditation was interrupted, because they're living in very cold climates up there in the mountains a lot of times. And this is a modern device that you've created that kind of gets you there faster, but aligns you. You called it tuning. Do you want to explain what tuning actually is?
The word comes from tuning an instrument. So when an instrument is out of tune, we adjust it. And the same thing is when a human is out of tune. So that means you are not in your balance. You are not the best version of yourself. And the interesting thing is we all understand bad frequencies. So we walk a street, we hear noise, we hear like car noise, we hear like whatever construction site. We know, for example, what you mentioned, the rays from cell phones, from batteries. We know all this and we live with it and we go like, oh, that gave me a headache today in the city. But obviously, when there's bad frequency, there's also good frequency. And
Yes.
this is what the people consciously need to understand. If you expose yourself to good frequencies, it heals you. And this is the core thing to even have this understanding of what frequency really means.
Wow. Now you're building a dome at your house in Malibu. What's
Yeah.
that all about? I got to hear
Um,
all about this.
yeah, we are building a dome in it's actually an old water tank, like a very old, huge water tank. And we are building a tuning dome where you can tune and where you basically tune in a group. And we also use different frequency. We use, for example, 174 hertz. There's a big gong in there, and it's a healing frequency. It's physical
Wow.
healing. And then for the spiritual work, we obviously use the tuner. And then this is again tuning, like tuning a radio when it doesn't have the right connection anymore, tuning an instrument and tuning yourself, bringing yourself back into balance. And this is why we are building this chamber, and it's not even a commercial idea behind this. It's just like for experiments.
I love it. Um, this is ancient technology, believe it or not, folks. The dome is a collector uh, of energy. So if you have a resonance within it, it surrounds you and it envelops you. It kind of nurtures you. So, how far along are you with this dome? I love this.
Yeah, I will send you an invite when we are done. You need to check it out.
I would love that.
I hope before the summer that we are ready.
Okay, good. Now you're passionate about helping our soldiers with PTSD and a lot of other healing, and this is part of why you formed your foundation. Do you want to talk a little bit about your foundation? Because I love when people give back. You have a product that's great, but this is going the extra mile to really help other individuals with what you're doing in this world. So let's talk about your foundation.
We formed this foundation like a couple of years after we started, and I said it's important because like every product that you do, it's like, yeah, it's a monetary product. You need to buy it. And we wanted, especially because I'm a big believer in the next generation. So, and as Dalai Lama said, if every 8-year-old would meditate, the next generation would have no war. And I believe in this, but there's like, it cannot be privileged to schools that have money, so we
Right.
started this foundation and we teamed up actually with another foundation that has a program in place. It's called Educate the Educator. So where we basically, because the kids are open, the kids do whatever is good
Yeah.
for them. They have a feeling they're smarter than we anticipate. But the teachers are often like very in their old structures. They go back and take pills and then believe in stuff that doesn't heal them. And so this program is actually one of them where it's education for the educator, that they understand that it's important to bring the spirituality, to bring a mindfulness to those schools. And then this was the first important thing in our foundation. And the second one is everywhere where actually trauma happens.
Okay.
And as we have a lot of veterans, and I worked with veterans myself, it's something so profound to bring those guys back into the heart power, because everything what happened to them is so traumatic, and I was in San Diego years ago. It's actually a veteran that runs a yoga studio down there. And it was unbelievable to see those guys. They look like Roman gladiators, and then they're missing a limb. I mean, it's really
Yeah. Yeah.
and and with tuning, you go back to your heart, because you want to be a tough guy. You went through a lot of bad things in your life, and you don't let yourself even connect to your own heart. So you're never in heart coherence. And and this is where I think healing is really needed, and the love tuning in combination with breath work uh, can facilitate this. And this is what we try to help with our foundation.
I see a lot of opening up of healing modalities that are millennia old and they're a lot of them are coming from uh, tribal medicine, and I see a much bigger global acceptance of things like ayahuasca, breath work, which I've done both, peyote, and things like this, where people are realizing these have been traumatic healing devices that tribes have used for thousands and thousands of years. When their warriors came back from battle and war, they couldn't integrate them into the tribe because they were too violent, too angry. They were actually carrying the violence in their auric field. And so I'm seeing a lot of people embracing these new modalities because the old ways don't work that we've been used to with Western medicine for so long. Just giving somebody a mood altering drug, an SSRI medication, is not helping. And in a lot of the school systems, people don't know this, but a lot of teachers were educated in what ADD is and what ADHD is and how to spot it. And if a teacher helped diagnose a student with ADHD, let's say, or has, hyperactive tendencies, the pharmaceutical industry would give money to that school for every child that was received the prescription for that medication. But here's the ruse in that. Almost 70% of those students that were diagnosed with ADD or ADHD never had a brain scan to actually diagnose it. It was done just by observation and behavior. And I love what you're doing with the Lovetuner because um, every teacher I've spoken to, and I've spoken at my high school alma mater, and they say they can always tell two things when a child comes into the classroom, a teenager comes into the classroom in the morning. They can always tell if they've had sugar for breakfast or they played a video game because they're hyper either way.
Sure.
And so let's talk a little bit about that. To integrate what you're doing into this modern world is something we so desperately need. But I know people are going to resist it until they see the results. That's the key.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Creating something so great in the middle of this world today.
Like when what you just said about food, for example. I mean, Love Tuner or in general, when you believe in frequency and vibration, it's something that goes all along. It's a full-blown lifestyle. You cannot go and eat cereals with tons of sugar and then you go, oh, I feel shit, and I tune and I do my spiritual work. So obviously, frequency is what you align with. And when you eat low frequency food and when you do low frequency stuff, and I mean, it's like, there's a big discussion out there about alcohol right now. But there's so much better stuff than alcohol, and
Yes.
we see this. So it's just like this constant awareness that we should have, and this comes when you really want to heal and change your life. You look into, what do I eat? Is this high frequency food or is it low frequency food? And it's so basic. And as soon as something is very colorful and has like a great marketing behind it, you probably should not eat it. And I mean,
It's true.
I was born and raised in Austria. We are still the last country where they don't allow any gene manipulated food. So I did not grow up with this. And I had back then a cousin in
It's
America,
good.
and I was always like kind of jealous how in the 70s or whatever, when they had like Coca-Cola, and it was like something we felt like we don't have this stuff. Now I'm happy we didn't have it. And when you see, and I've seen this in the schools as well, parents need to be really educated what they feed their kids. It's like,
Yeah.
and keep them away from their devices, understand how this algorithm is programmed. And if your kid would ask for a gun, you would not give him a gun. If the kids would ask for cocaine, you would not give him cocaine. But you're doing this, basically
Yeah.
doing this because the algorithm makes kids really addicted.
Yeah.
They're and it destroys their entire fantasy. They are not outside, and then you give them the food what they're used to. And I mean, I still have two kids, but they have been young kids, and both of my kids did not get any sugar. I think my daughter till she was 5 or 6 years old, And my son was a little bit younger because back then we have been living already in the United States, and it was
Right.
really hard to keep it away because the
Yeah.
entire school buffets, everything was like made up stuff that he never got at home, basically. But
Yeah.
you cannot, you don't want to have your kids to be an outsider. So this is
Yeah.
just what happens. But if we all together are more conscious of what we are doing to our kids, and if we have a dialogue about it and they go like, hey, in the schools, we should not give this and this food because we're having problem. And what you said, most
Yeah.
of the kids have no diagnosis. But if you would eat what most of the kids eat in the morning, your day will be a shitty day.
It's true. It's very true. And I learned that lesson the hard way. I caught myself years ago aging rapidly. And my father was a chiropractor, so I grew up with this knowledge. So I should kick myself in the you know what. And I turned around and I said, I got to reverse this. And I just changed the way I ate. And my problem was I thought I could cheat a little here and there. And then the little bit of cheating became a lot of bit of cheating. And you can't. We're in a very toxic environment nowadays, and many of the food products in America are banned in other countries. They won't let them cross the border. And I like what you said about, are you eating high vibration food or low vibration food? And what does that mean? There's a simple answer. Um, if you had a choice between a bag of Doritos and a steamed sweet potato, which should you choose? And it's as simple as that. Um, Coca-Cola is phosphoric acid. This eats at your bones, just in case you didn't know. Um, and it's very funny. I mean, you come from another country into the United States, it probably blew your mind. We have snack food every 30 feet in this country. Am I right?
So I was a professional swimmer, like not professional, but when I was in high school, and both of my kids at one point have been swimming too, and then I looked at like they had a snack bag, and I go like, well, I was swimming for 9 years, we never had a snack bag, it's like
Yeah.
it's very different, but it's a culture of consuming, but like
Yeah.
you cannot always like go big corporation want to make a lot of money
Yeah.
and like in the structure we're living in they want to make a lot of money but it comes also into your own responsibility you cannot
It's
be
true.
a complete fool and go into a supermarket and go like well I'm gonna buy this and that I mean a little bit consciousness needs to be there
Yeah.
and if your life is not worth it to you then yeah, like I mean, later on it goes fast, and then
Yeah.
what you, I mean, we have such a long life expectations now, so live it to the fullest you can, and use every decade in your life to improve, and at the
Yeah.
end, you're not gonna be frustrated and old and sick. You're gonna
Yeah.
be you're gonna be happy and wise, and that's it,
Yeah.
and then that's a great journey.
It will change your life if you eat right, you do meditation, breath work, release, the Lovetuner, these kind of things, these modalities. It does start with vibration and consciousness. I heard this said once, and that is, consciousness is a particular type of awareness that is independent of the mind. That means you're not thinking about it when you're actively doing it. So if you reach for Coca-Cola naturally, there's something that needs to be adjusted in there to make a person go, hey, maybe this isn't the healthiest thing for me. Which I know. I do have to disagree with you on one thing. I grew up in Pennsylvania. And when I was 10, they gave us a rifle and they showed us how to shoot properly. So
Okay.
there was discipline. And believe it or not, learning how to shoot a gun, because we were all surrounded by hunters,
Yeah,
was taken far more seriously than getting a driver's license.
yeah.
And your awareness had to be there. I wouldn't teach a kid today how to shoot a gun unless they had a particular type of awareness, because most of them, as you know, if you're raised European, you are you have adulthood kind of thrust on you slowly and gradually as you grow up. In America, they want you to be a kid your whole life. And then now we're wondering why today's youth who are now in their 30s are trying to figure out what it means to be an adult. In other countries, I don't believe they have that problem, because you have adulthood thrust upon you little by little, gradually as you're growing up.
I mean, like it's all comes down to self responsibility. Like you cannot take your responsibility uh, to your partner. You cannot give the responsibility your community, and you cannot give it to a government. So
Yeah.
and this is just like, I think it's a little bit of a, I mean, maybe you know it better because you've been growing up in this country and you have seen how it changed in the
Yeah.
generation. But it's I think it's being still a child is one thing, or not want to grow up. But I think it's a comfort, it's a very comforting thing, you like, nowadays you don't have to get out of your chair all day and everything comes to you. You know what I mean? and
Yes.
and this is just your own responsibility, like it's like nobody gonna kick you out of your sofa. For sure, the consumer society, they want you to sit in your sofa and consume
Yeah.
as much as you can for a long period of time, and people need to wake up, and when we're living
Yeah.
in 2024, you know what I mean? Like, come on,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what are you
It's
waiting
true.
for?
Do you want to do a quick demonstration of the Lovetuner?
Yeah, I'm
Because
gonna show
because
it.
I love the sound of that, and
Yeah.
because I watch your videos. But let's hear a sample of this.
So this is a cap, and then you pull it out, and this is the actual tuner, the Lovetuner, and it's calibrated on 528 hertz. It's a single tone flute, and what you basically do, what I'm gonna demonstrate, like in a couple of seconds, you do a conscious breathing break. You arrive in the here and now, and on a spiritual level and on a cosmic level, you invite love in your life. So this is basically the intention behind it. So, and this is how it sounds. Most importantly is that because the breathing is a big part of this whole thing. So what we
Right.
recommend is 6 cycles, and you try to exhale on a low audible tone as long as you can. And the frequency, the sound, gives you a feedback on your breathing pattern. So you know
Oh,
right away, and this is like when you start using the love tuner, you're gonna be like, whatever. Some people are like a little bit more, but average is about 10, 15 seconds, and then it goes up to 30 seconds. We have athletes that do 1 minute, 20 seconds, so that's crazy for an exhale. But it's not a competition, but it really strengthens your lung volume, and the component of breath work in combination with sound healing. That's actually what love
yeah,
tuning is.
that's phenomenal. I'm going to show a demonstration real quick, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, we're going to see the Lovetuner in action. Roll the tape.
I'm Dr. Deepak Chopra, and you're probably wondering what this necklace is that I'm wearing around my neck. So this little gadget is called a Lovetuner, and the necklace goes with it. But the Lovetuner is this little device that I have, which is basically a little whistle. When I blow through this whistle, which I'll do in a moment, it creates a frequency, a sound frequency of 528 hertz, which is understood to be the frequency of love. Why am I interested in this? Well, a lot of people say, I don't have the time to meditate. A lot of people say, I don't even have time to take a breathing break. I don't know how to be in the present moment. So this is a device that helps you do all that. This can be done either before meditation or after meditation or independent of meditation. In fact, it can even replace meditation if you don't have the time. So this is how you do it. Just take a deep breath, sit comfortably, make sure your back is erect. Just you can do it standing or sitting. And you take a deep breath. Perhaps 10 breaths, perhaps 20 breaths, depending on how much time you have. So you're inviting love in your life. You're coming to the present moment. You're taking a breathing break. You are increasing your lung capacity, and you're increasing the coherence of your biofield around you. And if we are a lot of people together, we can do it together and change the biofield of the surroundings. So that's why I'm so enthusiastic about the Lovetuner and the Chopra Center's support of the Lovetuner. Thank you and have a great day.
This reminds me of these high vibrational mantras that some of these ashrams up in the Far East will chant, and it gets you there right away because it resonates through your body. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I mean, everything that you can create out of yourself, like even the alming, and there's a
Yeah,
lot of healing stuff where you become your own resonant body, where you become a vessel. I mean, this stuff is very, very powerful. Mantras are powerful, like
yeah,
listening to frequencies is powerful. And I mean, there's so much, even sound bowls, everything that has to do
yeah.
with it. If you know someone how to use it correctly, that's really, really helpful.
I suggest everybody gets on a meditation regimen simply because it heals your body, gives you mental clarity. It actually can raise your IQ as well. You get more creative. And this is a big one for some people. For every year that you meditate, it reverses your aging by 1 year as well.
Absolutely.
So getting in there, they've proven this scientifically. They've measured the people's cell structure, from meditating and from not meditating. So this is a really great healing modality. But it's more than that. I find when I meditate, I can see clearly what I want to create. I can ideas come to me faster, things that I need to include in, let's say, a book I'm writing. Do you find this to be true as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like obviously I'm doing this for so long, so most people that I talk to are all meditating. I rarely meet someone that is not conscious about meditation, but it's the only thing what I can really recommend everyone. And if somebody says I have no time for it or I can't do it, then I say then do it double as long as everybody else because
Yes.
that's complete BS and that's a very cheap excuse, and it's an excuse because you have a hard time doing it, so
Yeah.
and everything you learn, like when somebody tells you learn how to ski or learn how to ride a bicycle and you're 3 years old, that's pretty challenging, and
Yeah.
you're not learning it by, oh, I don't want to get on this bike because I don't want to fall, so
Yeah.
this is the curiosity that we all should have, and just don't be so ignorant, like go into this and it will really change your life,
Yeah.
and the 2 hours in front of the TV at night can be used completely different, and it will
Yeah.
change your life 100%. You will be, and don't do it for anybody else besides yourself, even if your
Yep.
partner is not into this, just go on this journey by yourself. It will change everything. It make you happier. It will make you a better human, and you will have better high frequency experiences because you are vibrating higher. So whatever you attract is on a higher vibrational
Yeah.
level.
Beautifully said, my friend. How do we get a hold of you? Where do we go? The
Uh,
lovetuner.com? Is that where we
yeah,
go?
lovetuner.com. Yeah.
Lovetuner.com. We're going to put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for being on Awakened Nation, Sigmar. This is mind-blowing stuff. We are entering a new phase in our world where these things are now seeing the light of day, and I'm so excited that you were on Awakened Nation today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brett, for having me. It
You
was
bet.
wonderful chatting with you.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask you three questions in our lightning round. Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there something you're passionate about that none of us know that you're passionate about?
Uh, Besides healing the world, I'm a big kite surfer.
You're kidding.
Yeah, I like to be out at kite surfing, and it's that's I think that's my second favorite meditation form, a form of meditation.
Anything that's near or in the water, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's a
That's your passion.
combination of like, surfing and then getting some air. It's great.
That is. My second question is, do you have a favorite memory?
Favorite memory, that's a good one. Uh, like I think I have two memories, and they have been very different because they have been like 3 years apart. But I think the birth of my children,
Oh, wow.
because especially the first one, because that was so overwhelming. Where you go like, wow, this was really. But the second one, a little bit where it's going to, but I think that's something really, really, yeah, I will never forget this.
That's a good dad right there. Uh, My third and final question is, do you have a hope for the human race over the next 10 to 20 years?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, like, when we talk about the dimensions, so third dimension, fourth dimension, fifth dimension, it's already decided. So the light will win. But as we know, before something turns into better, it needs to get really shitty because otherwise nobody gets moving. And I
Right.
think we are right there with getting really shitty right now. But if we understand that we have the power,
Yeah.
then we can turn it around. And it just takes more and more souls to awaken, and just that everybody understands that no matter where you are in the world right now, you are as important and as influential as every other living being on this
Yeah.
world.
Yes. What a great way to end the show. Sigmar, thank you so much for being on Awakened Nation, my friend. You are doing God's work, and I love it with the 528 hertz. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brett. Have a good one.
You're welcome. Hey, everybody. Don't forget to tune in next week for another awesome episode of Awakened Nation. Until then, bye bye for now. Thank you so much for being a big part of the Awakened Nation movement. This is how you can help me and our extraordinary guests. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe and share this episode out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And let's grow this movement by word of mouth. Our success is because of you. Thank you, and see you next week.